morning. It's Friday, and today we're going to be talking about contextual e-collar work with a caveat or like a side note on grooming. Okay, because we've gotten a lot of requests for topics, so I'm going to try to fit multiple into one, but somehow try to keep them all connected. So today we are going to be talking about handling and grooming a dog and how I do that and how we do it here. But I also want to talk about contextual e-collar work, okay? And I'll explain to you what I mean by that, and I think I can relate these two things very nicely and hopefully clearly, and hopefully it's educational. Thank you for joining. It's Friday, baby. Weekend's here, almost, and we got a good topic this morning, all right? So I'm talking to Julie, and I'm saying, what should I be covering, we got some suggestions, and I'm asking her what I should do. She says, hey, why don't you cover handling and grooming? Because that was one of the requests, and that's always a fun thing to talk about. So then I started writing my notes down for that, and then I started realizing, well, I think it would help if I also talked about contextual e-collar work too, and also the association that dog will have to the e-collar stim in the context of being groomed, okay? So that's important. First, I'm going to go down. I'm going to do the grooming thing. Okay, when we're grooming a dog or handling a dog, it's something that I like to do with each dog, even if they don't need to be combed out or if they don't need their nails dremelled or anything. I still want to see how they handle the situation, because let me tell you this: asking a dog to lay on its side calmly and let you touch it on its paws and on its shoulders and up in its ears and all this stuff will really test your dog's compliance. You're really going to see how compliant is this dog. You're going to see a lot of, if there is attitude, you're going to see the attitude. And also it's going to test your relationship. Okay, so asking your dog to lay on its side and not to move so you can do what you need to do is asking a lot of trust and respect. And you're also just going to see what type of temperament you got for a dog. Some dogs will lay down on their side. Some dogs, they won't lay down on their side. Let's say that, all right? And then there's other dogs that will, but then they'll flop over and they'll say, rub my belly, and they'll try to turn it into play. But then you get other dogs that go the opposite direction, and they say, don't touch me, and they stiff up, and they might even start whale eyeing at you and then give you a snap, okay? So seriously, I think this is why this is so controversial, because laying a dog on its side, or asking a dog to lay on its side, and holding it accountable to be there and to be calm while you do what you need to do with the paws or whatever is going to bring out a dog's biting side. If it's a biting dog, more than likely, that is where you will see it. So if you go back to dog whispering techniques, and when they submit dogs after a dog fight or striking at them or some type of big no-no, they will submit them, and they often end up on their side. And that's pretty much what it looks like, is the dog on their side and relaxing at the end. But if they give you a fight, they give you a fight. It's in the dog. Some dogs don't want to submit to this situation, to this level of submission where you just kind of give it all to your human. You just lay there and trust them and respect them enough to let them do what they're going to do. So it can be a shit show. How do we do it here to kind of try to avoid the shit show? Well, I do it on the e-collar. So I will teach a dog to calm on command first, right? The calm on command is what's going to get us to this. So once I start teaching a dog to calm down with the e-collar, and they know that that's what it means, you'll see a dog start to relax and to calm down. Then I can start to use that in the grooming, right? So I can get the tools I'm going to use is a slip lead and an e-collar. I'm going to have a slip lead on the dog just for safety if I need it. And then I'm going to have the e-collar on the dog, and I'm going to ask the dog to down, and I'm going to suggest that it goes over to its side with my hands, and you can do that. The dog will understand if you're kind of moving the hips, moving the shoulders. Ask the dog to go on their side. Rewarding, of course, when they soften. Good. Letting them know, I'm wanting you to relax right now. The first time's always the most awkward when you're asking a dog to lay on their side, but you'll be surprised how quickly a dog understands that you're trying to ask them to be on their side, and then it's whether or not they want to let you put them on their side or not. Then you might have a little struggle. But once you get the dog on the side, a dog who understands to calm down, this is the secret. This is what makes it easier for me. If the dog starts to get tense, like I don't want to lay on my side, I can go shh, tap on the e-collar low level and feel the body relax, because because I'm using the calm on command that I taught. So the association to that stim for me, not for a dog who doesn't get trained and just throws the e-collar on. The association to the stim for this dog with me, because I taught it, is calmness in this situation. In the context of me getting ready to groom you, it's going to mean calm. It's not going to mean one of the commands. It's going to mean calm. Shh, tap, calm. So I feel the dog relax, so I can start, they're relaxing, good, give them a little massage, and then ask for a little bit more. Ask them to lay down a little bit more until eventually they're on their side. And what will happen is, if they're still a little unsure, they'll lift up their head or something like that, and I'll say, shh, tap on the e-collar, push their head back down, or you're not pushing the head down, you're just guiding it down, release it, good, massage the body. The dog will let you massage their body oftentimes, and then when you get them calm, you make your way down to the paws, you're going to see that head lift off the floor, give you a look, shh, tap on the e-collar. What happens after a couple of those, that tap on the e-collar, the dog puts its head down without you having to tell it what to do. So now it's clear. It's like, okay, that means to calm down, to let you do what you're going to do. And I prove to the dog, I'm not going to hurt you. All I'm doing is taking your paw, touching around it gently. That's it. So I'm proving to the dog. I'm earning those brownie points where it's like, you can trust me, but at the same time, I can hold you accountable for the calm state of mind. And in the context of this means I want you on your side, so I can access all of your paws, and I can do what I need to do. I do this with a dog even if I don't need to groom it, even if I don't need to do its nails, because this is a relationship thing. This is going to, when I'm done with this is going to boost trust and respect and e-collar knowledge, more understanding on how to calm down when you start to get stressed, right? All that state of mind stuff. There's so much going on when we're doing this. It's super beneficial for my relationship with the dog, and also for the dog's understanding of how to be groomed, what state of mind to carry when you're in the context of being groomed. Because like we said, with state of mind training, dogs they enter a situation, and then they enter their associated state of mind or frame of mind to deal with that situation, and then there's behaviors tied to that state of mind into that, all blah blah blah, right? So we're trying to say, I want you to associate calmness with this activity. And if you start to leave that calm, centered space and you start to get tense, that e-collar pressure that you feel, that means to relax, okay? And so that's how we do it, and it works. And it's a little bit of a process, but it really does work. Now, even with dogs even with aggressive dogs, of course we would have a safer setup. We'd have a muzzle on the dog and all that. But this is essentially the same approach to get that type of dog to learn to submit to me. That's what it is. You're practically submitting a dog is what you're doing. And you're saying, stay on your side and be vulnerable and allow me to prod around. Yeah, a dominant dog doesn't want you doing that. So if you can get a dominant dog to allow you to do that and submit to that, you're going a long ways with your relationship. That dog's going to behave for you better in all other aspects in your life, because the relationship's going to change from that moment on, okay? So it's a really, really big deal. Now, what they do in a lot of grooming salons is they put them up, they have them standing up, they put them in this, I don't even know what you would call it, like a swing, or it's not a swing, it's, I wish Gabby was on here, she would know. But it holds the dog up by the chest, right? They usually have something by the neck, and then they can just access everything. So if the dog's having a fit, they can't really get to them. They're being, restrained or whatever. The dog's not restrained here. Remember this. With this particular technique, that dog could just get up and bite you in the face, right? If you don't know what you're doing. There is no restriction. The only thing I have on is a slip lead in case the dog goes into crazy town. I can use that to calm them down. But the rest is just good old e-collar and body language and tone and the dog whispering stuff, okay? Oh, you know who's on here? Sabrina just joined from Good Dogma. She's a professional groomer. And today we're talking about handling and grooming and how I'm doing it here. But Sabrina knows what those machines are called that you put a dog on. It's not a machine. It's when you go to get a dog groomed and you put them on that little, whatever the thing is, the harness, that gets them around the chest and gets them around the neck and holds them still. What is that called, Sabrina? I'd appreciate that if you know. All right, so how does this relate? I want to get over to the context e-collar work, the contextual e-collar work, okay? This is how it works with a dog. This is what I've noticed, and this is what I've been doing for a long time now. A dog, when they feel the e-collar stim, especially once they're conditioned to it and they know that it's you saying, hey, you need to do something right now. If I walk up to a door and we're at the door and the dog's ready to go out and I tap the e-collar at a low level, the dog looks at me and doesn't know what to do, and then it learns to sit. A day or two down the road, what I can do is go up to that same situation, the context of we're about to go out the door, the dog's not sitting, I can tap silently on the collar and the dog sits. Sabrina says she's not sure she uses a grooming loop with a safety clip. Oh, okay. So it's at the salon that we bring all the dogs to that don't go to Gabby personally, that go to the salon that she's working at. There's this device that they use that it's like a harness for the chest, and it holds the head still, and then you can just get in there and do whatever they need to do, and the dog can't. Even if the dog's flipping out, they really can't do anything. Okay. So, like I said, I teach the dog to sit at a door, right? I do that a time or two. Next time we're at the door, the dog's standing, I can tap on the e-collar, and without saying a word to the dog, they say, in the context of being at the door, that stim meant to sit before, so I'm going to sit. All right? Now, the context of being on the place bed, if I feel the stim, if I'm not in a down, it's going to mean to down. If I am in a down, it's going to mean to calm down more. The context, if I feel the stim, if I'm in the back of the seat of the car, is probably going to mean to lay down and relax, right? So teaching the dog, or like if I'm on the walk, if there's a leash on my neck and I'm walking on pavement next to my human, if I feel that e-collar stim, it needs to go into heel. Without words, just situation, context, and feeling the e-collar stim, the dog will have enough knowledge to figure it out. This is the underlying, of course we're going to clean, we're not just going to rely on that. We're going to have all the commands and all that. But I do this first before I get doing drills on commands, right? Same with like recall. If you're like 50 feet away and you hear the beep, anytime you hear the beep on your collar and then you feel stim, it will always mean come to me. It will always mean come to me, okay? So the dogs start learning what the stim means contextually because they know it's you, right? You've conditioned them. They know it means that you're asking them to do something that they yet have complied to. And so they try to figure it out, and they figure out, oh, when I'm walking, it's always this heel thing. When I'm in front of a door, it's always sit. When I'm on the place bed, it's always down. And so then you can get through your day just like you enter a situation, click the e-collar, and the dog makes the right choice. That's contextual e-collar work. Okay, you're using the context of this particular situation and the dog's association to what the e-collar stim should be asking them to do in that situation. I know it sounds complex, but if you see somebody do it, it's super simple. After that, then I do more drills where I'll start teaching, the dogs to do their commands back, strung together, like come, sit, down, heel, sit, down, break, that kind of stuff, where the stim is a little less easy to guess, because you never know what I'm going to ask next. It's based off from what I'm saying to you directly. I do both, but I think the contextual e-collar work is not to be underestimated. For example, again, when we're doing the grooming, the dog will know that the stim means to relax. Here's why this is important. It has nothing to do with me at that point. I can then give this to a new person and a new handler who knows how to operate it. If they tell the dog to lay down and to relax, if it doesn't, they can click on that stim. And because the stim is the thing that actually has the association, actually has the power, that the dog will know what they mean. Oh, you want me to do this. Okay, you want me to relax. So the association to the stim in the context that you're in is huge. Now here's the thing. It's always going to mean relax. That's just any time. It's always going to mean relax. I just can't think of a time where it's not going to mean calm down. It's going to mean stop doing what you're doing, but it's also going to mean calm down. And it's all, of course, if I give a command, then it's going to mean to do that command, of course. But if you're just feeling the stim and I haven't said anything to you, more than likely, if you calm down, you're right. You're right. So we teach that. We teach the dogs that, like, when in doubt, relax. Okay? Now, Sabrina says, oh, sure, yes, there are many versions of that. Sorry, I missed the beginning. But all the same concept. Control the head, calm the body, so both dog and handler are safe. Yeah, okay, so there's these devices that you can that can assist with that, so the dog and the handler can be safe, because dogs will turn around and bite. In this method that I'm doing, I don't have that, is what I was explaining, Sabrina, is all we have is a slip lead, and we're using the old dog whispering stuff and the e-collar to get us through the situation. And what we're really using is calm on command. So it's like, relax. And as soon as the dog gets tense, stim, the dog relaxes. Good. It's great. It's a great ritual to do to further deepen and to teach the concept, the stim, the association to the stim to mean calm down. Like I said before, the dog's laying on its side. It starts to get concerned. It lifts its head up. E-collar stim, after a few minutes of doing this, will make the dog relax without me saying a word. And all I do is pet it afterwards. And then, you get a few sessions down and things are much easier. That's how we're doing it. And it's working for fearful dogs who are afraid of the Dremel, dogs who just don't want it to happen. All of them are usually a little nervous, but there's those ones that are like terrified. This works with them. It also works with dominant dogs wonderfully, because it kind of puts them in their place. It's kind of an attitude adjustment to put a dog on its side and say, relax, I'm going to be like massaging you and touching your paws, without them trying to lift their head up or move you away with their paws and be like that. They can't do any of that. That gets a click on the e-collar. Shh, relax, okay? I should probably disclaimer this, not to try it at home, because it can be dangerous depending on the dog you're doing it with and your skill set. But it's great. It's great for your relationship if you do it right. And then you get a dog who you can do the nails, and you don't have to worry about it, which is, and you can comb it and all that stuff. But really what you're getting, when I say relax, do it. Even if you're concerned, even if you don't want to, do it. And you're having that conversation through grooming. And so, yeah, that is pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I really think that the contextual e-collar work is great, because the dog knows, by the time that they know it's you, they understand that you're saying you're not doing something right. And what it does is it produces the dog to try something, right? So this is how I start a lot of the trainings, because the dogs don't know anything. So it's like, if we're at the door, if they feel the stim, they've been at the door before, chances of them being told to sit are a lot, or high. So if I go to the door and I start going on a low level stim, and they're looking at me and they're wondering what I want, if they were to guess, they'd probably guess right, and they'd probably sit. And I would say, good, that's good. And that'll get me a sit reliably with a click at the door the next time I go, so then I can start naming it, right? And I'll do that with pretty much each command. Is like I'm capturing it, praising and rewarding it, and then naming it, as the sessions go on. So what's funny is, like, that's how we teach recall. The dog doesn't know what beep means either. The dog doesn't know what beep means. So the dog goes out. How am I going to teach? This is how I do it. I do it through context. How am I going to teach the dog that the beep means recall? Yes, I could do 100 reps, guys. I could do 200 reps of like beep, come, and then taking a long line and railing the dog in, to literally take the dog's body and bring it to me to say, when you hear that noise, you come to me. Or I could set up a situation using context where the dog is, if they had to guess, they'd guess right, or very minimal direction from me. Mark it with good, that was the right thing to do for next time, and then start naming it once I get it reliably. So here's an example for the recall. I do it with every fucking command. I don't like to tell a dog to do something and then use the pressure to manipulate their body. That's my last resort. So this is what I go to first. We go to the outside. We go to the door. It opens up from the training room into the fenced-in yard. The dog's new. I do not know this dog. It just got here. I go to open up the door. The dog wants to get out. I can't wait to get out. So I'll play with it a little bit. I'll kind of open the door and shut it, just playing around, getting to know how frustrated this dog get and all that. But eventually I'm just going to let it out. And whoop, it goes out to the social yard. I shut the door behind it. I don't even go out with it. I just watch it through a window. Most of the time, there's a lot of dog scents out there that they get distracted on. So they're sniffing. They might be using the bathroom and all that. And then all of a sudden, they hear beep, beep, beep. What is that? Like on their collar, what is that? And then a little stim, low stim, just like, And they're like, what the hell? And I watch the dog say, what is this? And then I open the door and say their name, and they all come to me. Like 9 out of 10. Every now and then I'll have to have a long line on one of these dogs so I can do that thing. They'll come to me because in their mind, I was just let out to use the bathroom. Now this noise happened. I don't know what it means. And then they heard the door open. They heard me say the dog's name. Yesterday was Ollie. Ollie, he looks at me. Come here, bud. Right? And he runs into the room, runs into the training room. He might go right to me and like say, hey, I want to sit right here with you because I don't know what's going on out there. Or he might run past me, be in the room, runs past me, which he did yesterday. Beep, 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 stim. He turns around. Good boy. Come here, Ollie. Comes close to me, gets into my space. I pet him. Good boy. And we sit there in silence for like 15 to 30 seconds. Just petting him. Good boy. All right, break. Let him back outside. I'll walk out with him this time. Just walking around the yard with him, and he'll be walking around, and then I'll leave. And I'll go back to the training room and shut the door, watch him, and then beep. And I shit you not, 2 or 3 reps of this, the dog hears the beep, they come running to you. And that's just the beginning. We're stacking experiences, okay? So that's not like, oh, the dog knows recall. No, the dog has an idea of what recall is because coming to me when hearing that beep has worked a handful of times in this context. And what I will do is I will build on that. So now this dog who just got here on day 1, this actually just happened yesterday, is recalling to me when I beep. Even if I don't let it outside now, so now we're in the training room, it'll wander away and look into the other rooms. I'll beep and I can get him to come to me without a leash. Right there at me, good boy, sit. Because that's his first association. That's the first time he heard it. It's memorable because he didn't know what it meant. He was a little startled. And then I came in and he figured it out that coming to me was what it meant. I built on that with a couple more reps. And then I did a few inside. And now what are we going to do? Yeah, we're going right back. We're going outside. I want this guy to know this. So now I get the dog on a long line. And I go up and I go out the front door, which goes out to no fence. It goes out to the yard and then the road and all that. What I'm doing now is I'm opening the door up, and as soon as that dog runs out, because that dog wants to get out. They're looking at that door like, I can't wait to go out. I open that door up. He's on a long line. He's on the e-collar. As soon as he bolts out, which is already a boo-boo. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to bolt out the door. Gone. Bye-bye. Remember, he just got here 15 minutes ago. Of course he's running out that door. It's the one he came in. He's going to look for his owners. Room, out the door as soon as he goes out the door. I'm not going to let him get too far. As soon as he gets out the door, beep, hits stim at a mild correction. Now that he has some experience on it, it's a little firmer, and he comes running right back into me. Right back inside. I'm backed up into the room a little bit, so he has to go across the room. He gets to me. He sits. Whoa. Pat. Good boy. I'm going to sit there for 30 seconds to a minute. Just chill. Not ask anything, not really talk to him, just pet him. He's right in between my legs, and then the door is shut because it shuts itself. I mean, break, go back up to the door. This is the second time. This actually just happened yesterday, too. Open the door up. I don't say a word to the dog. The dog thinks about going out, and it sits. It stops, and it sits. Okay? I walk in front of the dog. I say, Ollie. He looks at me, I say, break, and I encourage him to go out the door. And now he learns, that's how I get out the door. Oh my God, that's how I get out the door. Okay, so I can get out the door. I just have to wait for him to say. I'm not going to repeat that right now because we're on a roll with this recall thing. Now we're outside, and he's like, I'm free. Now he's headed up the steps, running away. Got to go find my owners, leaving you, Josh. Bye, Josh. Committed away. Beep, stim. A little firmer that time because he was committed. Gone. Bye-bye. Runs right back to me, in between my legs, sits, and I just pet him. And we just stay there for 30 seconds. Relax the mind. Good boy. Good boy. All right, break. And I let him walk away from me. He's on a 30-foot long line attached to my backpack. I'm not choking this dog up on a leash. Do whatever you want, okay? Well, now he's keeping his eye on me, right? Now we start walking the perimeter of the property. Walking the perimeter of the property. Now I'm waiting for moments to recall him. I'm not recalling for no reason. I'm using it. I'm always tying it to a reason. If his mind goes, I'm leaving, and commits to running away, that'll be a recall. This is his introduction to recall. So this will keep the dog from thinking thoughts like running away, and you'll see that the dog will start to think about running away, but then they'll recall to you because your timing was right as they're about to switch, right as they're about to commit. So now I'm walking, and every dog falls for this next one on my property. Now they want to leave the grass of the lawn and go up to the cement area, like where the cars are parked. So he's going. As soon as he hits the cement, beep, correction, he recalls back to me. Okay? This is about it. This is like, now he's done. Now he's like, okay, I'm done. He gets to me, sits, do the same thing. We just stay there. 30 seconds. Relax. Letting everything relax. Me being like, if you're with me, it's cool. It's nice and chill. I'm petting you and it's relaxed. I'm not, it's very safe with me. Okay. You don't understand how this is bumping into boundaries, right? He's running into rules. He doesn't know the rules, but he's going and trying to be independent. But this creates a dog who wants to listen to you and follow you. And then over the course of the next week, I'm going to teach him everything he needs to know. And then his confidence and everything comes back, but without all the attitude. But the next couple of days, he's going to be looking at me like, what do you want me to do? Because he's going to be down in the hierarchy. All right. He was up here making his own choices. Now he's below me looking at me for guidance. So then I'm walking the perimeter and this dog is with me. He's just with me. He's like me and you, like where you go, I go. And I'm like, yes, good boy. And I'm rewarding and praising that. Now, this dog is recalling like nicely to a sound that it did not know minutes ago. And it was only those reps that I named to you, what was that, like 6 reps? That's all he got. The last one that I gave him when we were headed back down, and he was just standing still and I was getting away from him, I just went, and we're heading back inside, I went beep, and it was a straight line to me, and sat. Good. Now I'm going to put him away and let him think on that. And then tomorrow I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat that recall stuff and then add something new. So I'm using the context of when you're out in the reason why it made sense is because the first time I introduced it, I let him out to a yard. How many times does the dog get let out to a yard and then you open the door and you say, come on, let's go back in? All the fucking time, every day, multiple times a day. So I use that context to teach what the beep means and what the stim means, and it happens like that. I don't need to do 400 reps. Now I will go do a bunch of reps afterwards. The dog knows it, to proof it and to deepen it and to tighten it. Yes, but they catch on much quicker than you think if you can use context, where the dog can understand why you're using it, what it means. Not just in a dry, sterile room where it's like, I don't understand why you're doing it. It's not fun, but the only reason I'm doing it is because you're giving me food or you're giving me a toy. That's the only way you can hold my interest, is to offer me something to earn. So I will learn these things, but I don't understand the context of how we're using them yet. And I understand trainers will do that later, but I'm telling you, you're missing something here because you're attitude adjusting, you're relationship building, and you're teaching the fucking commands at the same time on the goddamn Ecollar. It's just so, once you get smooth at this type of training, it's just so effective. It's just so effective because you're not. One of the problems with obedience training is, one of the tricks is you have to have the dog to understand that it's commands. They're not negotiable. Like, it's not a game. These are commands. These are going to keep you alive. So we don't treat it like a game in the beginning. Like later on, after this is done, when I do drills and stuff, I will soften up with the dog and play with them and with the commands. But I need there to be an association of some seriousness to this recall. So the dog understands it's not a game. You need to turn around right now. What if there was a car? What if you were chasing another dog? Turn around right now. That's your association to that beep. And you know what's beautiful about it being on a beep and not my voice? You get to go home with that association with your owner. Because that sound, that beep on that collar stays the same. So you show your owner the same amount of urgency as you showed me, because it's not me. It wasn't me. I never said come until after the beep. When you needed some guidance, then I'm saying come. You know, then I'm doing that. But that beep is what you're listening for. So that goes home with you. So you get that sharp, crisp recall. And it's taught the way I just taught you. Through a situation, through context, where the dog goes through an experience and finds out that what it means through going through a real life experience is set up as it is. I do set it up, but I use the real life thing. Like, here's the door. You're going to run out? Now you know what it means, because you know you're not supposed to run out the door. you know? So, and it freaking just lands right in the dog's head. Now, there is some getting good at this. The whole thing is, you try to get good at this, setting up these clear conversations. So I'm teaching pretty much through context. And then after that, then I'm naming things and tightening things up. But a lot of it's just context. And that's why I'm so quiet and I'm not saying a lot to the dog. If you watch me, it's quiet until this process is done. And then I talk to the dog more. Once the dog is like, I need your help, I'm with you, then I talk to the dog more. Then I start directing the dog. But in this beginning process, especially for the recall, the only time you hear me talking to the dog is if I'm praising it, like coming back to me, come here, good boy, nice work. All right? So contextual e-collar work. It's how my brain's working. If we're walking and you feel that stim, what is it going to mean? It's not going to mean down if we're walking. It's not going to mean recall if we're walking. It's not going to mean place if we're walking. It's going to mean heel. It's going to mean get into this position. It's never not going to mean that, right? Unless it's a state of mind thing, the dog also learns that. It's like, I can correct your state of mind if you're in heel, but you're starting to get whiny. Yeah, but it's not that complicated to the dog. They get it, but I want to show you how they get it. They're getting it contextually. And so first, they can get it without having any reps, like 400 reps of learning what heel means. If they just get a few moments that you choose to teach them that this pressure, well, in the context of being on the leash, means to come to this position on my leg, and then you start to put them in a situation where they're going to have to need to figure that out because now they're not listening. You put a little distraction in the environment where they don't want to listen to you and it gets up to something that's more uncomfortable, and now they have to figure it out and it takes them a second, but they do. That one was memorable. That doesn't take 400 reps to stick. They remember that one. The pressure's on, they get a little panicky because they weren't paying attention, and then they figure it out and it turns off. They remember that one, and you keep setting that one up back to back to back until the dog gets it at the end of that session. And then what you see is like, they get it. They get it. Pressure, in the context of being on a leash, it means to go to heel. Yeah, that's all it'll ever mean, dude. That's all it'll ever mean, right? And after the beep, after you hear the beep, it will always, forever mean go to your handler. So that's heel, that's easy to learn. And that's recall, that's easy for the dog to learn. Other than obviously we got to put the dog through, tighten it up and all this, but to get the grasp of the concept, that's half the program, healing and recalling. And then there's stay. And then this is where it can get tricky, teaching the dog to stay. After you say stay, the stim's not going to mean recall. This is the thing. It won't mean recall unless you hear that beep. Or unless you hear me say the word come. Stim, if you're in a sit 10 feet away from me, is not going to mean recall. It's probably going to mean to lay down, right? To relax more. If I say stay and I walk away and you're making a mistake, the dog, the stim you feel after that word is going to mean lay down and relax, right? Because I'm asking you to stay in one position while I walk away and do stuff. So that's the trick, teaching them once you say stay, the stim means to relax. Once they hear the beep, the stim means to run to you. So they get these clear sounds to tell them what it's going to mean in the context, right? But listen, if you use context like this, you're going to get far, fast, and then tighten up. If you do drills first, if you focus on commands first without doing this stuff, I don't know, dogs feel wonky to me. They always choose a command to try to get out of trouble, and I don't like that. Like, for example, the other day, we're in the social yard and a dog's being inappropriate towards this tells me that the dog was focused. This is an example of a dog who was heavily focused on obedience to try to get the dog to be a good dog and not doing this stuff, the contextual stuff first, the relation stuff first, and then building on more onto the commands with the e-collar. This is what was happening. This dog was being inappropriate with one of the dogs, one of the females, which is super common. I disagreed and corrected the dog, and it fucking sat. Or they'll down or something, and it's like, no. What that means is to go. If you're sniffing the crotch and trying to hump a female and you feel that tap, in the context of that does not mean sit. It does not mean sit. It means you're doing something wrong and get out of the situation. So I have to go through all that. It's like in a social situation, when you're being socially inappropriate, if you feel a correction on the e-collar, it's not a command. It just means get out of the situation. So now I had to teach that dog that, which I have. Now when you feel a stim, when you're being inappropriate, it means to leave the situation. So I teach the dog by telling it to go afterwards. And I tell it to leave the situation. You'll see a dog not want to. They'll take a couple steps away but want to go right back at it. And it's no, go. They actually have to mentally learn to put themselves, to not be part of the situation anymore. And I had to teach this dog this. Now, this is what happens. Now, a few days later, if he's doing something inappropriate, he feels stim, he walks away from the situation. That's correct in that context. I'm teaching the dog to think. You know, what do you think I'm asking of you right now? Why would I fucking ask you to sit while you're sitting there trying to hump her? Why? Why would I do that? I wouldn't. Think, walk away. Okay, so they get too stuck. You want to know why? It's not the dog's fault. It's because it's like everybody's worried about the sit and the down and the, so we're using that with e-collar so fucking heavily that by the time the dog comes to me and I'm trying to do like just living with the dog, they think the stims like means to sit all the time. Like no matter what they're doing, it just must mean to sit or something. That comes from doing drills early before educating the dog through the context of it. And like, I know that that's harder to learn because there's not really many people doing it, but it makes for a dog who can think. And they understand that the e-collar, if they're feeling the pressure, they have to then think about what you're trying to say in that moment. If they're not paying attention, they're in their own little world sniffing some grass and they feel some stim, I don't want it to just drop into a down. Like that's probably wrong. I want it to feel the stim, understand that's me disagreeing with what you're doing, and then you try to look at me and look at the fucking situation and say, what should I be doing right now? Chances are, if you look at me, I'm giving you the direction, right? I don't want you to just sniff the grass, feel it, and just start downing and then sitting and going through all of the commands. I want a dog to understand that means you need to try to make the right choice. I'm trying to tell you to do something. And oftentimes what the dogs will do is when they feel that stim in our program, they'll lift their head up, they'll look at me to get direction. And that's it. That's the answer. They did it right. They felt the stim. They're not sure what I'm trying to say. They look at me. Good. Because then from there I can say come, or I can say knock it off what you're doing, or I can say go, or I can say down, or I can say whatever. But if they're focused on the commands heavily and not like the relationship and the problem solving and how the mechanics of this thing works, the e-collar and me telling you what to do in the environment, before we get into the commands, they think the stims just like shuffle through the commands. So I could like stim and it's like sit, stim and it's like down, stim and they'll go look for a place bed. They're not looking at the environment and learning how to read. And it becomes fussy. I don't know. It's a pain in the butt to take a dog who's already trained on the e-collar but still not doing good, and then me having to come in and say, okay, well, I know you think you know what the stim means, but it doesn't mean, with me, it's going to be different. I'm going to be giving you stim, and you're going to have to look around and try to figure out what to do with it. In the beginning process, I'm not necessarily going to be very obvious because I need you to learn to pay attention. And once you're paying attention, I will be very obvious. Okay, so they miss these little process, these little steps, and it's just correlated to the commands. And I don't know, unless you're telling the dog to do something, and like sit and stay, when the dog's not in command, it's like, well, then the only way to correct the dog is to put it in a command, is to correct it and put it in a command, and then you can't have the dog outside of a command, because every time you correct it for doing something wrong, it goes into a down. You're like, no, you don't have to down, just don't do that, and go over there, and it just becomes weird. So that's why I've adopted to doing the contextual e-collar work first with the relationship and teaching the dog, hey, I know you don't know what that means right now, but that's okay. If you take a deep breath, you relax, and you look around, you'll figure it out very easily. And that skill I need you to learn. I need you to learn that skill. That brings them to reality. That allows them to read a room and to make good judgment. It gets to the point where if the dog is in a room with us and like, they're out of command, but then they're in a situation that looks familiar, like maybe dinner or something, or a situation that they've been through before, you'll see the dog recognize that and say, the dog wants to please you at this point, so they're saying, what would my handler want me to do in this situation? And I'll see a dog go lay down. Just go lay. It doesn't have to be on the place bed. Sometimes they choose a place bed. But they're like, this situation isn't for me, and they remove themselves and go lay down, and that gets rewarded. And I'm saying, I like that you were thinking for yourself, and not only were you thinking for yourself, you were thinking about what can you do in this situation that your handler likes, based off on what I've liked in the past, what I wanted you to do in the past. So you're literally walking into the situation and saying, all right, what is it that he wanted me to do last time I was here? And then you do it without me asking. Hell yes. I love that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of work we're doing first before I start demanding the dog around a lot. and start telling exactly what to do all the time to make sure that it can, under stress and under exciting situations. There's this period of time, which is usually like the first week, that I'm doing this contextual stuff, and then the second week I'm really tightening stuff up. I'm really doing more drills and really doing sends a place and make sure everything's technically getting tight. And then the third week, it's like, well, now we're proofing it. Now we're going off property, and now we're going and using everything and really showing them how to use it even more contextually, and getting them out in the world and making sure they can do everything. And then they go home, unless they have a rehab program. Then they're here a couple more weeks. So I hope that explains to you guys how I'm thinking and why, if you come to watch me, you could be confused at first and you could have a lot of questions. That's why, because it's hard to tell what's going on in the beginning, because I'm doing this contextual stuff, and I'm also doing a lot of dog whispering stuff, and I'm also doing a lot of letting the dog make choices, figure out what happens when you make X, Y, and Z choices, what's out there, what's available, what happens when you run out the door, what happens when you do this, letting the dog go through the motions and to just really get it out of their system, and then slowly start to gain more and more control and tighten up the training as I go ahead. That creates a dog who's less stressed, dog who's not worried about all the outcomes because, hey, buddy, I already went there and did that and it wasn't worth it. So now when I go to use my commands, I don't have to worry about stress being captured in them. Like, for example, this is a big pet peeve of mine, and I've done it for years. That's why I made this, what I am considering a mistake, long ago, and now I remedy it. But sometimes a dog comes to me and they already know their commands, and this is what happens. Dog who is reactive to other dogs, okay? We don't need to worry about why. All we need to know is, like, they see a dog and they go towards it. They want to move towards it. They're whiny, they're barky, they're lungy, blah, blah, blah. So then the dog gets taught to heel. Because if the dog's healing, the theory is if the dog's healing, then they're not going to be going and lunging and barking and doing all that stuff, and you're holding the dog to heel, so therefore it's not barking or what. And this is true. But the problem is the dog still wants to go over there. And if the dog doesn't have the utmost fucking amount of respect for you, it's going to whine and be fussy because it wants to go over there. And here's the fucking thing. This is where the problem is. Then you're going to meet somebody like me, and I'm going to say, oh, well, you know what the problem is? He never went over there and learned that the stove was hot. If you would have let him go over there and then corrected him heavily, and then let him go over there and correct him, he would have stopped wanting to go over there, and now there's no desire to go over there. See, because the thing is the issue is that he wants to go over there. Once he decides he doesn't want to go over there, everything goes away. There's no whining, there's nothing. And then you do heel. But if you don't do that, you do heel first, still fussy. Bethany knows what I'm talking about. This happens a lot around here, by the way, Bethany. So, they're in heel, they were taught heel, and now I come along, somebody like me, and says, well, we need him to go up to the stove and touch it. Dog won't do it. Dog won't do it because of all the corrections it had in the past for leaving heel. It won't do it. It associates heel, which isn't so bad, with the context of walking by other dogs. So you'll see it know that it's supposed to be in heel, but be really funky, like I want to go over there, but it fucking won't now. Even if I'm like telling it to go over there, it won't. So what we did is we trained anxiety into our command. It's stuck. I can't. If the dog doesn't go over there and touch it, he'll always want to do it. So, you can trap anxiety in your commands. And then that becomes, and like that's real. Then the association to heel around dogs can very much just simply mean whine or bark or whatever. But I'm going to be held accountable to being heel. So it's not going to be a bark or lunge anymore, but it's going to downgrade to a whine and to fussiness, odd movements when you're moving. They're in a perfect heel, but then they see a dog, and all of a sudden they're not walking right. It's because they're putting half of their attention on the dog and half of their attention on their work, which is heel, and they're not giving you 100% anymore. So now they can't pay attention to that perfect position. So they're kind of like, they're trying to be in heel, but they're also trying to pay attention to the dog, and they're wobbling all over the place. Obviously, we correct that shit, right? And if you have enough respect from your dog, and you have enough past experiences where you've really put this dog in its place, you can disagree with that and it'll go away. But if you haven't, you can disagree with that, and the dog will stay in heel, but they're going to whine because especially very reactive kind of breeds like shepherds and stuff like that. Shepherds and well, Shepherds, like because you got like Aussies and then you got German and stuff, but you know for sure they're going to be more vocal, so they kind of like speak their mind. Where some dogs are quieter about it, they might want to go over there, but they're not really making any noise. But you can feel it in the body. You can feel them kind of want to go over there. You correct that stuff, of course, and you can do a lot. But I'm telling you right now, it's so much more difficult now. This dog's going to be so much more difficult than if in the beginning we were just like, go for it, bing. Next set of dogs, go for it, bing. Because in the context of me being on a leash with you and us being out in the community, it is never going to be okay for you to run up on another pack that we don't know. That's never going to be okay. So we correct it every time the dog does it. So we do that bumping into boundaries thing where we let the dog in a long lane and we let the dog make choices as we're going through like a park. If the dog leaves us and tries to go up on another dog or people, it gets corrected and recalled, settled down, and then let back out until it learns to weave through these people and these dogs without being in a command, while minding its own business, while staying within its pack, which is me and whoever's following us. And they move with us, and they just kind of learn like, okay, we avoid other packs. Then we can start doing heel. Then we can start applying heel, and it works better because now the dog has touched the stove, realized it's hot, and now they don't care to go up there. They're not whining when you're walking by the dog. Now, see what I mean? See, so the dogs teach you to do it this way. You know, this isn't something that I came up with without the dog's help. The dogs train you. They'll tell you what's working and what's not. Okay, let's see. Now I'm thinking about all the dogs I sent home like that. Dude, me too, ASIC Dog Academy. Are you kidding me? Years of it. And you know what? You know, I was very firm with the corrections when I was teaching back then with like whining and stuff. And you can shut the shit down. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is that if the owner doesn't have that level of clout, then the dog goes right back to whining with the owner because they don't have that level of respect. Although, can you get it? Dude, you can get a level of respect with a dog where you tell them no and they stop whining, even with something they want to go up on like a dog, of course. But the average owner is never going to get that level of respect. It's just not going to happen. So if you just let the dog have their own experiences and decide they don't like doing that in the context of being out in the community, then it's a more reliable going home. That's why. It's more reliable going home because the dog already had its own experience and decided it just doesn't like to do that. But here's what can happen. The dog can get back with the owner and say, well, in association to walks with this particular person and being out to the community, this is how I behave. And that happens. They trigger back with the owner simply because the hand who's holding the leash has changed to one that this is how I behaved with this particular human in this particular environment before, so now I snap back. But luckily, we have an e-collar in that training, and that stim is going to not only punish, it's also going to give the association of calm to help battle that old association until the old association is gone and the new expectation is all that's left. But in the beginning, you can expect that with even going through the process of allowing the dog to touch the stove, it's still going to happen. But the significance in whining and fussiness is dramatically less if you let the dog touch the stove. I hope everybody understands what I'm saying here. That's like with a biting dog. Like a lot of the old trainers, with a biting dog, it's like you let the dog strike at you, and then you correct them firmly and submit them. So the dog understands. This is why a dog's never afraid of you after you punish them for biting. All they want to do is suck up to you and be your best friend because you didn't start the fight. I didn't go up to the dog and just start punching the dog in the face. The dog struck at me. He said, wham. And all I did was correct and finish it. So when they're done, I don't have to explain anything to the dog. The dog's like, okay, that happened because I tried to punch you in the face. And I'm like, yes. So there is no like, I'm terrified of you. It's like, I shouldn't bite you. And then what you do after that is you let the dog come in and get some soft affection. So they understand, I'm not dangerous, just don't bite me. I'm not trying to kill you, just don't bite me. And then you can get a dog to not bite you simply because you bite back. And it really does work that way. Bethany says, I knew it. Absolutely, that was what happened. The public doesn't really look kind upon letting me run up, letting my dog run up to theirs and then correct them heavily. And I agree with you, Bethany. I agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why it's not happening, obviously. We do setups, and then also, not going to lie, we do that, though, for you guys in a safe manner. You know, we find dogs behind fences and let the dog make the choice, but we try to set it up as much as possible with our own dogs and with dogs that we know, and with setups through Gabby's dogs and or clients who are willing to help out, make it feel real. by the time we get to, this is how we do it, by the time we get to the real world, the dog doesn't know the difference. And if it does need a correction, it's not going to be the whole shit show that it was the first couple times. First couple times, a shit show. Afterwards, the dog learns how to deal with the correction and remedies it real quick. And so by the time we're in public, like by the time I'm in Frederick and stuff, I'm not really having meltdowns. You know, none of that's going to happen. If anything, it'll be a quick little whoop, and that's it. Even with a heavy correction, because we teach our dogs to be calm after a correction. Don't carry. You can't get corrected and go, and I'm talking, the correction was like tap, not howled, just tap, and then the dog goes complaining. That all gets dealt with before we leave the property. I'm not going out in public knowing that that's how my dog receives corrections. The dog, I need to teach the dog how to receive a correction. Take it, shh, quiet. And that's the secret. Take it and be quiet. And then go ahead and make a choice, you know? And so by the time I get out there, that's how we're getting away with it, is because I can let a dog kind of sneakily go up. I mean, we're getting better and better at this. Go up to a dog on a fence or something, or start to commit to go up to a dog. I have the leash length just right where it can't, and then correct it, recall it, and keep walking. Just giving it the experience of that's what happens when you go up on them. And just keep walking by them until the dog walks by them and doesn't go up on them. Good. And the dog's changing its own way of how it feels about it, because I'm just letting it go up on them, essentially controlled. I'm not going to let them touch, but I'm letting the dog move away from me and go towards the dog. I know it's very risky, but in a perfect world, this is how the dogs learn best. You know, it's how dogs learn best. That's just what I've discovered. You know, if they don't know that the stove's hot, the grass is always greener. It's like, no, it's not. Go on over there. Go ahead. And so it really does work. Now, this is the thing to Bethany and to anyone else on here. The comment of like the strangers don't look kindly. That's the game. The game is getting really good at doing that kind of stuff. And the trick is to get a dog to learn how to take a correction before you go out to public. If your dog's going to scream bloody murder when it gets a correction, like I'm okay with one yelp, like a boop, I'm okay with that. But I'm not okay with you know what. I'm not okay with that. That gets taken care of before we leave the property. All right? The dog learns to keep that. Don't do that. Okay? It can be a relationship issue too. They learn who to do that with and who not to do that with. That bitching bullshit. But yeah, you can get a dog over that too. It's simply, if I correct you and then you start doing that, you get corrected until you stop doing that. And then eventually what happens is they get corrected and they don't ever do that, and they get a pat on the head and they learn. And then you just keep bringing up the conversation until it's clear and we're over it. And then we go out in public. And the dog learns how. A lot of these dogs that you see on our videos, if I were to like correct them firm like I do while we're out sometimes for the first time, it would be a mess. They would, you know what I mean? They want to know how to deal with it. It's a process of getting them there so they understand the stim means to relax directly after you feel it and to stop doing what you're doing. That's the secret sauce. That's why I have a job. That's simple as that. That's why I have a job, and that's why it's expensive, because it's not easy to do, but it can be done. Okay? They don't have to flip out when they feel that e-collar pressure. And they definitely don't have to whine when they walk by other dogs. They can actually just behave and walk by and be good. But we have to let them make all the choices to get that, I think. That's how I do it. I let them make all the bad choices until they're gone. Until they decide they're not valuable choices anymore. In the hands of Josh, these don't go well, but walking by quietly and politely does, and so the dog just starts choosing that, and I just start praising that, and therefore that's what the dog becomes in association to me in my walk, blah, blah, blah. And then we teach the owners to do the same. But they do have to go home and go through some of the bullshit, because they're going back to their neighborhood, and that dog in particular who barks at me every morning, and they might trigger back, and then you correct, and that stim, not only does it punish, but it brings them back to the calm state of mind, and now you have control, and you rinse and repeat until the dog is no longer making the issues, having any of the problems. And that's why we encourage people to go after it when they get home. Don't just sit in the house and be like, I'm afraid to go outside. Get shit good in the house, of course. You know, you got to be good in the kennel. It's got to be good in the place bed. You got to get all that stuff done. But then I would encourage going walking around the neighborhood and starting to work on the dog stuff. Like, let's get you around the situation so that you can learn that this goes with me too, not just at Julie's Canine Academy. All right. And then a few weeks down the road, you're around your block. You can't get your dog to mess up on any of these dogs. He looks at them as a trap. So he's just kind of looking at you and minding his own business. Now you're ready to start expanding your horizons and going other places. But that's what it's all about. And then what happens is it doesn't become a problem anymore. Time goes by and you can move on. Your dog doesn't have to be leash reactive forever. It's simple as them deciding that it's not a valuable behavior anymore. It's not a valuable response to that situation. It always ends poorly. The dog is not dumb. They stop choosing the barking and lunging and the whining. And they're left with being calm and polite and a tail wagging and you petting them on the head. And they realize that's much easier. And I'm telling you, even the biggest, baddest, toughest dogs, they would rather you pet them on the head than start exploding at the dog after they've been allowed to do both. Okay? So thanks for joining Contextual e-collar work. Don't know what else to call it, but that's how I'm starting a lot of my sessions. It's how I'm getting my dogs the initial part of their knowledge. It's how they're learning the system of when you feel that stim, it's me communicating that you're doing something wrong or you have yet to complete what you're doing, what I've asked you to do. And it teaches the dog to pay attention to me. It conditions the dog to the collar. At the same time, adjusts an attitude to a dog because they are trying things and they're realizing they don't work. It does a lot at once. And I hope it makes sense with me talking about it because I feel like talking about it is just not going to get it clear. But maybe, I don't know. Watching it and you're going to say, oh, okay. I don't need to, now because I feel like it's more simple than how it sounds if you just watch it. So go over on Facebook and stuff and you'll see our work on there and YouTube. I appreciate you guys. We did it. It's Friday. I won't see you till Monday, but I still have to have topics to come up with. I do have some topics that I'm still going to get to that have been suggested, but feel free to leave them in the comments below, ideas for future topics that we can make a whole live out of, and I'll try to get to them. I really appreciate you guys' attention today. If there's any questions now while we're on here, I'll take them. If not, I really hope you guys have a good weekend. I am going to do day 2 of the dog who just arrived yesterday. His name's Ollie. He's an Australian Shepherd, and he's gorgeous. He's 3 years old, but he's nippy. He's nipped people, and he nipped a nurse, I think, last is what got him in here. But he also nipped a few of the family members and friends of the owner. One that actually left a bruise on the dog's leg. So the guy's, he's nipping at people, and he's only doing it at home around his person and his domain. He's not doing it out in public. So very interesting stuff. But we did day 1 with that guy yesterday, and it's just how I explained it to you, and I'm about to do day 2. So go watch that on YouTube or Facebook and keep an eye, and you'll kind of get an idea of how I'm doing it, hopefully. And then I think you can, once you get an idea, go ahead and try it with your dog. And I think you'll find that once you get these skills and how to communicate with a dog like this, I think you'll find it quite enjoyable because the dog is very interactive in this training process. They're allowed to make a lot of choices in the beginning. So after a while, after that process is done, then we start tightening up to make sure we can have a tight dog that can go out of the kennel and just be strung along from command to command to command and go all around the community and never be out of command. Of course, we've got to let them out of command. But they could leave the kennel and go on this huge adventure just using the 5 commands and never being out of command and go back home without a problem. We got to make sure they can do that because there's times where you're going to need your dog to be tight. So then we get to that, and there's a whole 2 weeks put into that. All right, guys. Contextual e-collar work, it's very fun. It's very interesting. And there's a lot of magic that can be done as far as rehab goes with that type of work as well. And maybe one day we'll talk about that. Appreciate you. See you Monday. Have a good weekend.